My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, AKA the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. For those of you that have been watching, hi, welcome to the Exit Team. And those of you that have just started following us, we are a show that brings recovery into your living room. We find guests who have real-life experiences with the adversities and sufferings of life. Our show topics tend to be more around substance use disorder, but it can vary for anything. So it's an honor and a privilege to share this show with you and to be your host. I'm really excited for today's show because I get the privilege of booking all the guests for the shows. And so our guests for the show canceled last minute, and the universe provided Miss Angela. Hi, Angela.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Where are you from?
I am from Peabody, Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So this is pretty cool because Angela and I don't know each other. And so the universe was like, we're going to do a show and we're going to get to know each other.
Yep.
So what qualifies you for this show?
So I'm in recovery myself.
Okay.
Just my past experience of what I went through and kind of where I am in my life today after overcoming many obstacles and adversities. Okay,
all right. So you're in recovery.
Yep.
And so what are you in recovery from?
Heroin addiction.
Heroin addiction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because looking at you, you don't look like a heroin addict.
Yeah, everyone says that.
You're bright and you're beautiful, and you have these really beautiful blue eyes. So normally what I like to, because everyone's story is so different, mm-hmm. right? The crazy thing about addiction is it doesn't matter who you are, what walk of life you came from. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. We've had guests from all over the country on this show, from all different cultural backings, from all different upbringings. Mm-hmm. And the disease of addiction and alcoholism doesn't really care about that.
It does not discriminate.
But to our viewers, it does matter,
mm-hmm.
Because some people can identify with you. So tell me about your life, like before substance use disorder.
Okay. So again, I grew up in Peabody, Massachusetts. Very normal home, great family, both parents, brother and sister. My life was pretty much spent in school, playing sports, family vacations. You know, the outside looking in, everything was perfect. And I really didn't get into drugs and alcohol until a little bit later on. But like, you know, growing up, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I always like felt very detached, and I was always trying to like fit in somewhere, even though like I did fit in. I just like didn't perceive myself the way others saw me. And so, you know, like going through high school and stuff, you know, I would drink with the team like on the weekends after a win.
What sports
things like
did you
that.
play?
Basketball, softball, and volleyball.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I played Junior Olympics volleyball for 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
I miss it very much.
We should get together and
yes,
play.
Definitely. I truly believe, like looking back today, that like sports was like my first addiction. It was
mm-hmm.
the only time like I ever felt okay. Like when I was on the court, the field, you know, wherever I was, like as long as I had a ball in my hands, like I was okay. And I was always seeking, you know, validation and other things outside myself because like I wasn't okay in my own skin. And I remember the first time I drank, I actually got alcohol poisoning. I woke up the next day in a hospital with my mom sitting next to me in a hospital bed.
Hold on, how old were you?
I was 16.
16?
Yep.
Okay, so growing up you always felt some kind of disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of Johann Hari?
No.
Oh my God, I love him. You have to read him. So he writes all these wonderful books. He writes about depression, addiction, mm-hmm. and he's really dedicated his whole entire life. And so, I mean, essentially in his findings, he has found that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's mm-hmm. actually connection. Mm-hmm. And I could totally identify that when I was reading his literature, because I was like, I never felt a connection to self.
Yes.
So how could I
Exactly.
have a connection with you? And
Right.
the first connection I ever felt with was a substance.
Right.
So
Yep.
so you have identified, with that feeling so far. And you also have told us that like your outside life was very put together. However, internally you still
Right.
weren't feeling okay.
Right.
So you needed others' validation to be okay. So you got into sports. You found that.
Yep.
It's crazy because when I'm given the opportunity to share my story, I tell people like I was a woman who didn't know who I was, and I needed you to love me.
Yes.
And like sports were perfect for that.
Yes.
So many people loved you. And my freshman year in high school, I was the first freshman to ever make varsity volleyball, varsity basketball, and varsity softball. And I went on to play Junior Olympics volleyball for 4 years. So I think that's pretty common. So 16.
Yep.
First time you drank.
Yep. It was,
Alcohol poisoning.
and everything went away, and I felt okay.
Okay.
You know, and then like I always say like a normal person like that would have happened to them, and they would have been like, oh, I'm not gonna drink again for a while. But like, I literally couldn't wait to do it again, whether I ended up in a hospital bed or not. Like I fell in love with like the effect that alcohol produced for me. And then like it was just drinking for a while, and then like I went off to college, and then like I started hanging around with people who drank like I drank.
Okay.
And then I was about 20, I think. I had a surgery, and that was the first time opiates had entered my life. And I was very naive. I had no idea what they were at all. And after I didn't need the meds anymore for the surgery, I remember getting like really sick, and I like thought I had the flu, and I was like, what is wrong with me? So I asked somebody, and they were like, oh, you're like in withdrawal. And I was like, oh, what? Like, what's withdrawal? And they were like, well, if like you just take more, like the withdrawal symptoms will go away. So like in my head, I'm like, oh, bing, okay, awesome. Like, and then like, I started buying them off the street and stuff. And then, manipulating doctors for more prescriptions.
Yeah.
That was a huge one for me. And next thing you know, heroin, I find out heroin's cheaper. And, I swore I was never going to use a needle. I'm not really a drug addict. I use it for legitimate pain because I had so many like injuries over time from like playing sports and whatnot. That like I literally was like convincing myself and like believing my own lies that like I really needed it for like legitimate pain. But I was really just in so much emotional pain that like I was using that to like mask how I was feeling and like be okay. And like eventually like I did, was using heroin IV. And that's like the progression of it for me.
So our prompters are down. So our viewers watching, you can see underneath the stuff coming in, but we can't. So it's being texted to me, and you just got a really cute, encouraging message. So I want to share it with you. It's so great from Anthony. He says, "Go, best friend." Yeah. Okay. So something that you said that was really cool is you had said. Well, so first of all, you identified with what I would consider the internal condition, restless irritable discontent.
Yes.
I'm not okay, and you found relief in that moment when you were drinking.
Right.
But then you had said that you had surgery and when you got prescription painkillers, because the thing is that everybody that qualifies to be an alcoholic or a drug addict finds their way differently, right? There is no like one set like rule of thumb. Like some people, there's the dislocation theory, there's isolation, some people genetics, some people are predisposed, everyone finds their way. And so you were prescribed drugs legally for a reason. Correct. And then that triggered something inside of you.
Yes.
Because what's crazy is there's so many people all over the world that can take those drugs as prescribed and be fine.
Right.
I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head of the individuals that can't, but it's a very small percentage.
Yeah, like my brother and sister. They're like, my sister had surgery, I think this was like a year or two ago, and she was saying how like she hated the feeling that the pain medication gave her, and I'm like, what? That's crazy. Like,
yeah,
it has a different effect on different people. I don't know if it's genetics. I don't know exactly what it is, but all I know is I have this thing.
So at the age of 20, you had your surgery, and so from there you realized that if I keep taking this substance, like I'll feel better. And so you hear people like call that like an allergy phenomenon, a craving. But anyway, something happens inside of us where we need it over and over, and that's really, I think, for me, especially working in this field and my life being dedicated, I'm definitely an extremist to this field.
Yes.
People really focus on, oh, the drug's bad, the drug's addictive, the drug's bad, the drug's addictive, and all these harmful things. But to me, what's more important, what you've already shared with us, is all the experiences you had before you found that substance. And that's really, like, to me, where people need to focus to find the solution. Because for me, heroin was my solution.
Yes.
Heroin made everything better.
Yes.
It was never okay. I would have never, ever been able to sit before alcohol and drugs and finding my way to recovery. I would never be able to sit at this table with you. I would be so awkward.
Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty awkward now, but I can own it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm comfortable with being awkward now. So you were 20. Did you start, like, doctor shopping immediately? Like, how did you escalate from, like, prescription pills to heroin IV use? Because those still are a pretty big jump from one another.
It happened over time. I knew somebody who got prescribed them at first, so I was, buy a couple from him here and there, and it was not an everyday thing at first. And then, like, next thing you know, like, the 5 and 10 milligram Percocets aren't working anymore. I need more.
Yeah.
And I was working in a restaurant at the time, and like, I did other drugs as well. Like, I smoked weed, and I came in one day and someone knew that I was stoned, and you make that connection with someone else who's also using other substances, and she was like, oh, I know where I can get those from. And that also introduced me into another whole group of people who used other substances as well. And it went from, like, 15 milligram Percocet to, like, oh, they can get 30 milligram Percocet now. Oh, these are too expensive and it's not really doing the trick. Like, heroin's cheaper.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier, like, I was swore off that, like, I was never going to use a needle. And then people would tell me, like, oh, you're just wasting it. You won't get the same high, things like that. And I finally was just like, you know what, whatever, I'll just try it once, and then, like, game over for me.
So how old are you?
I'll be 28 next month.
28.
Yes.
And how long have you been using, or how long have you been sober for?
I just celebrated 2 years on November 17th.
Mine was November 3rd. Ooh, I know, that's
November
crazy.
babies.
Yes, okay. So you're 2 years sober.
Yep.
I want to get into the solution because I think that's really important, and that's what this show's about. But I want to paint a really good picture of how ugly your life was, like through active drug addiction, and how you were someone that never felt okay. So if viewers are watching and they know that feeling, and they feel alone, they feel isolated, and they can sit in a room full of people and just feel awkward and all by themselves, like, hi, hello, we're your people. We get that, right?
Yes.
And we found alcohol and drugs to treat that. So what are some consequences that you suffered due to your using?
Many. Loss of, like, family relationships.
It sounds like because you had, like, a really well put together
Yes.
family. It sounds like.
Yep.
So that's huge.
I put them through a lot, as many of us in that position have. I stole from them constantly, lied to them. My family couldn't even have, like, their wallets or purses left around. Electronics, I would steal anything I could get my hands on. Jewelry, it didn't matter as long as I got the next bag. I put them through absolute hell, and they never knew what to do with me either. It was like, all right, well, now you're going to detox again, or now you're going to another treatment program. Like, I've been to a bunch of different states, I've been to a bunch of different detoxes, and it was like, I was never willing to actually get sober. I was, like, just doing it to appease them, because I've been homeless. I've lived on, on the streets a few times. I've had to live in my car before, then, like, the car gets taken away and whatnot. I luckily never went to jail. I did have warrants for me when I got sober this time, but I was able to clear them up.
That's awesome.
And just, like, the biggest, like, loss and, like, consequence was just, like, I was just a shell of a human.
Ugh.
I didn't want to live anymore. I had no desire to live. I wanted to stop getting high, but, like, I didn't know how to stop. And it just brought me to a point where, like, I just didn't want to be here anymore. But I didn't have it in me to, actually do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So your family, like, you put your family through a lot. For family members that are watching, what would you say to them for their loved one that's going through this?
You can't force them to do it.
You can't. What? So there is no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah.
Your experience is yours, and whoever needs to see this show, the universe has put them in front of it.
Yeah.
What would you tell them to do for their
The
loved
family
one?
member?
Yeah.
Well, for my experience, the tough love worked for me.
Tough love.
No, you're not coming home. No, we're not sending you money.
I'm the
No,
hopeless
we're
Rowdy.
not doing
Tough love
this.
worked for
No,
me
we're
too.
not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, so like
We have another
all
question.
those no's, over time, like the pain got great enough, and I was like finally like at a point where I was just mentally broken down so badly that I was like, okay, like I'm willing to make a change. But like setting boundaries and like going with the tough love and not enabling them, even though like I still struggle with that today too, because like I have people in my life that like are still using who like I have to set boundaries with, and try not to enable them. I have at times, but I realize that like I'm just hurting them more by always being there and always helping them and whatnot. Because like I believe that the reason I went through everything I went through is so that like I can pass this along to the next person.
Yes.
And I'm very passionate about helping, and I truly believe that like God has me on this earth to help other people. And sometimes I want to help too much, but
Yeah.
sometimes it can be a bad thing, you know.
I get it. I always tell people like check out Al-Anon, check out self-help groups. I destroyed my family. I mean, I still am working on establishing relationships with my family at no fault of theirs and 100% fault of my disease. And fault of my own, but I was powerless over my disease. Yes. So, working on forgiveness for myself. But I always, whenever you're working with an addict, it's really important to take in the family component, because in my experience, everyone in that family is sick from the addiction. And in my experience of working with addicts, sometimes the family can become even sicker than the actual addict themselves.
Yeah.
So
when I was in treatment 3 years ago, my mom wrote me a letter that my therapist in the treatment center asked her to write, and it was like an impact letter on like how it was affecting my family.
Stop.
And I cried for like days because like I never really realized it. I thought I was just hurting myself. I didn't see what it did to my family just because like I was in the disease. I didn't care or see about anything else. And she said in it that like her and my dad almost got divorced.
Right. Yeah.
She would stop going to the mall, and she would she would start isolating because she didn't want to see people who were like, oh, how's Angela doing? So she hid a lot. And then like just like my brother and sister, like I grew up with them being like my best friends, and then like for them to like want nothing to do with me and like not talk to me anymore, and like I'll never forget like the look of absolute disgust on their face like the first time like they saw my arms. So like we really don't like see at the time and in that moment like what we're really doing to others around us. Like we think that like, oh, I'm just hurting myself. Like what do you care?
You really are amazing. Yeah, you've been through so much adversity, right? Like you're homeless, you lived in the streets, you have destroyed your family, you destroyed your life, you suffered, it sounds like almost a lot of the consequences. Somehow you escaped incarceration, although you were incarcerated in your own mind into your own disease.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you have made a huge turnaround. That's really cool, because I think with the disease of addiction, not necessarily that it's stigmatized, because I don't think the stigma is really as big of a thing as it used to be. At least in my life, it's not. But people don't get to see this. This.
Yes.
Like you're really beautiful.
Thank you.
And your soul is very bright, and it's a really cool experience to be sitting here at this table with you. So last week, I was supposed to be meeting with a young lady, and she couldn't meet with me, and I was like driving home, and I'm so selfish and self-centered, and so driving home, I'm like, what the hell, now I gotta meet her later, but I need to meal prep my chicken, right? And I was like so upset about my chicken that I had to meal prep, and how was I gonna find time, right? Because like the whole entire universe revolves around me, or so I think. Yep. And I was on the phone with my work, and I work, in the field. And so I was on the phone with my work, and as I'm pulling up to my house, I live on a main street, and there was a car parked at my house, and there was the driver's side window to this vehicle was down, and there was a young man slumped leaning out of it, and there was a passenger in the car, and we have a bunch of stuff coming that I need to read in just a minute. Okay. The passenger was had his head leaned back against the window and his eyes were rolled up in his head. And I was on the phone with my work, and thank goodness I was, because I'm a trained professional, and I didn't act as one. And I started freaking out, and I was like, there are 2 dead kids outside my house, and I don't know what to do. And so, I'm a believer in fate. I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in energy. I don't know what it is, but like something brought me there because I was supposed to be somewhere else. And so I pulled up and I started freaking out, and I'm shaking them. And I'm like, they're dead. They're dead. I didn't once for a second slow down to check their pulse, by the way. I was like freaking out. So I ran up into, well, first of all, my neighbor yells down. He was like, oh, hey, they've been like that for a while. So I start screaming and cussing at my neighbors, telling them exactly what I thought of them. As I sprinted upstairs and got the Narcan, and I called 911, and I came downstairs and I stood in front of the car and I started crying. And I was like, there are 2 people, and I can only save one because I only had 1 box of Narcan. And I was just bawling my eyes out to the 911 operator, and I was like, I don't know how to choose. And he said, you grab the one closest to you. And I did. And thank God I did, because the passenger came back on his own. And both of the young men were able to be revived. But when you hear about addiction, that's what you think. And that was certainly traumatizing. I spent a long time in active drug addiction, and I've been around people who have overdosed, and I've overdosed myself. But to experience that sober was very traumatizing for me. But I think that label right there is still what you hear and what you think about with addiction, not you. Not this beautiful young lady sitting across from me. So our time is starting to run out here, and the show goes by very, very quickly. Tell me how you did it. Because for those watching.
So I got sober. First I went to a treatment program, inpatient. I spent 60 days there, and it was the best thing I ever did. They introduced me to so many different things that I use for my recovery today. Main thing I did was I joined a 12-step fellowship and got sober through that. I continue to work that 12-step fellowship. And I just I took suggestions from people, and I just did what they told me to do, because every time I try to do this my way, I end up back in a detox, back in a program, back kicked out of my parents' house, always some type of consequence. So I finally I just surrendered. I don't know how it happened. I can't explain it. The only explanation I have for it is that, it was God intervening in my life and finally giving me that wake-up call that I needed. And I just became so willing to listen and take suggestions, and I just did anything anyone told me to do. And I'm not perfect. I have my bumps in the road, because sometimes it's oh, I'll take this suggestion, but I'm not going to take this one. I'm good. I got this one.
Yeah. So we had some paint around it.
Yeah.
So I want to read these to you. This is really, Shayla says, "You're amazing, Angela. So beautiful and an inspiration." And that's crazy, because 2 years ago you were homeless, robbing, cheating, stealing, and doing anything you could. And in 2 years, the first 2 comments we got were about how amazing you are. That's really cool. And then we have a question that came in.
Okay.
As a family member, if the addict is trying to get sober again, several times before, so it sounds, pretty familiar to us, should I help them, or is that enabling if they just go back to drugs again and again?
I think it comes back to, this is my personal opinion, is going back to boundaries and what are you willing to do and not willing to do that's not going to enable the person.
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
It really is too, because when I first got sober, I would say, cut him out.
Right.
Because that was my experience. And
Right.
I wish my dad was here, because he would tell you how I sucked every fiber of life out of him. And did I do it intentionally? No, because I wasn't in control at that time. But until my dad and my mom and every other person in my life had completely cut me out of their lives, and I literally finally had and for me, you know what that meant? My family had to watch me be homeless. My family had to watch me live on the streets. My family had to watch me go without eating, right? Which was painful for them. But until they stopped doing that for me, I wasn't willing to change.
Right.
However, what I can tell you in my new studies and findings is that a lot of people are saying no, actually, love, support, build. In my experience, that didn't work for me.
Right.
I can understand both sides of it here, and I think that really, honestly, what that person who is seeking that guidance should look internally, because the answer resides inside them. Yep. So we're almost out of time. Isn't that crazy?
Went by fast.
I told you it would. So this has been really cool. So you do 12-step fellowship. What do you do with your life, like outside 12-step fellowship?
I work. I actually work
Girl, you got a job?
Yeah, I work at the treatment center I went through.
What?
Yes, which is a pretty cool experience. Pretty much just like work and...
You're employable.
I'm employable.
At a treatment center.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, like I'm so busy between like work and sponsees and you know, trying to like keep up with like family, and I really don't have much free time. I try to do like a lot of fellowship stuff with people. We go bowling, go to movies, just random stuff. I'm having an ugly sweater party soon.
That's fun. So you have a life.
Yes, I have a life
You
with
have a
like
life.
people who support me and like don't judge me and like love me unconditionally.
Because you have found a way in a 100% abstinence base, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that a lot of places are kind of moving and gravitating towards MAT, and we don't have enough time to get into that. But I have found my way in abstinence base, and I feel like abstinence tends to be forgot about. Like, hi, like, hello, like, we can do this without anything. And in my experience, because I did try abstinence-based recovery before, and I wasn't successful with it. But what I can tell you, what I did find, and I think I said abstinence-based, medically assisted treatment. I did try that, and I wasn't able to find myself on a deep level like I have with abstinence-based. So I always love having guests on, you know, that have found their way through abstinence-based recovery. It really is inspirational to others, especially your story. You've come so far. So in like 60 seconds to the viewers at home, someone that's struggling, what would you say to them?
What would I say to someone that's struggling? Tell someone that you're struggling. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to not be okay. Find something like within you that like gives you hope. That's why I do what I do, to like show people that there is hope. Because I was so hopeless, I didn't think that there was like a way out of this, but like just know that like I'm proof that like there is a way out of this.
And you are. You really are. I've gotten goosebumps so many times during the show. It's been such a beautiful show. If you're watching the show, check Angela on Facebook. Find her if you need help with anything. We're going to tag her in our Facebook page so she can be linked with the show. Reach out to any of us. You know, thank you everyone for watching. If you're struggling in any way, please just know that this show is here to help you, to inspire you, to offer you hope, to educate you, whatever it is, your loved one, you know, whatever anyone needs. We're essentially just letting you guys know that we're here for you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, AKA the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I'm your host. For those of you that have been following us, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for joining us again this week. For those of you that have just tuned in, so Exit Team is a show that takes people with real-life adversities, sufferings, and struggles, and brings them right into your living room and lets you know how they made it through that. We offer inspiration, hope, education. We focus mainly on people with substance use disorders, with the big epidemic that's going on. So we take people with real life sufferings and we bring them right into your living room, and they let us know, how they made it through. A lot of the testimonies that people share with us are very powerful, very heartwarming. So if you have been following us, Bobby is normally with us, and he's our co-host. So Bobby's no longer with us, and he's been replaced by Joey. Hi, Joey.
How's it going?
Just kidding. Bobby's not here with us today, but Joey's equally just as awesome. We don't know why Bobby's not here.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Things come up.
Yeah.
Busy life, trying to save lives out there.
So, Joey's from Nashua. Tell us.
I'm from Nashua now.
Yeah. Tell us about. First of all, tell us why you're on the show.
I'm on the show because I love talking about recovery.
Yeah.
I do. I didn't know that this life ever existed. I didn't know. For me, I thought my life. I was an alcoholic, drug addict. I was all of it. Anything you got, give it to me. But for me, I thought my life was going to be that way, and I would die an alcoholic death, and I was okay with that.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was like, whatever. I'm going to drink till I die, and I'm okay. And I settled for my whole life. I just settled.
Isn't it so empowering?
Yeah.
You're just like, when you take a moment and you step back and you're like, holy, trying not to swear, life is really good.
Yeah. I'm coming up on 4 years in a couple of days on the 10th. And
awesome.
If you had told me 4 years ago that you'd be sober, you'd be helping people, you'd work for a treatment center, never in a million years. I would have laughed it off. I would have said, you're crazy, right? But
it wouldn't even have been appealing.
I would have been like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm fine where I'm at, right? Because I was obstinate. I was defiant. I didn't listen to anybody, right? I listened to self. That's all I did was, selfish, self-seeking. We talk about a lot of this stuff in my fellowship and at the treatment center that I work at, is that I was self-will run riot. I did everything I wanted, never had anything for anybody else. To get what I needed, get what I wanted, get whatever, made me feel okay.
And that's the stigma that we hear on addiction a lot too, and that we see, like, the media paint a picture of addicts is how terrible, and that is true. Those qualities are pretty terrible qualities to have. However, people come out on the other side of this. Like, look at us sitting here.
Right.
When
I'm untreated, right? When I'm out there ripping and running, I don't care about anybody else. That's true.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that I'm a bad person,
Yep.
right? I was raised in a good home. I had mother, father, I had a sister. My parents drank, right? I watched that growing up, and I thought that was what you were supposed to do. And it's not their fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just I saw it. I saw it in my family, and I thought that's what I'm supposed to do, right?
I can identify with that so much.
And so I had good morals. I knew not to steal. I knew I knew to be kind to people, right? But the life I was starting to get shown was that, all right, well, you might have to be angry sometimes. You might have to, use, your defense mechanisms, right? And I started grabbing onto those early because I never really felt safe or okay, in my own skin. I was always trying to find my spot. I could never find my spot in school, and before I took a drink or a drug, I did not feel okay with myself. I don't know why. It was something missing, right? I didn't have a connection with anything.
That's common for a lot of people. Not all people, but a lot of people, for some reason, even before they pick up the substance, have this underlying condition that they used alcohol and drugs to treat. I mean, some people are really fortunate and like they developed a habit another way, and then once they picked up their habit, then, you know, came everything else with it. But yeah, I never felt connected either at all. As a child, I grew up in a household similar to yours. You know, alcohol and drugs were okay, and it, you know what's weird is like when I was in high school, like my principal and counselors used to be like, you have so much potential, like what's wrong with you?
Oh, I heard that all the time.
And I'd be like, what? Like it didn't make sense. I couldn't grasp it because I wasn't doing something that, I'm gonna use quotations here because is it wrong? I don't really know, because I have purpose today. It wasn't wrong. I had to go through it for a reason, but
yeah,
you know.
You bring up a good point. Like I do not regret all the pain that I went through, because I don't think I ever would have found this side of life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have found like this happy and whole life that I found today, that I get to help people on a daily basis, that I feel like I have a purpose, that I feel like I'm not just, wasting away by myself alone, right? Because I could be in a room full of 100 people and I still felt alone on the inside. I was missing something.
Yeah.
Right? I was just, and I didn't know how to fill that besides find some drugs, find some alcohol, right? That quelled all that noise.
Life was good.
Life was good. So what I did, in essence, is I treated my alcoholism with alcohol.
Yeah.
Here, let's pour some alcohol on top of that. And it made everything go away. It made the fears, doubts, and insecurities go away. And that was my solution for 2 decades.
I love this. This apparently tends to be a pretty hot topic for this show. But like alcohol and heroin and meth, because I'm a meth addict, the drugs were not my problem. They were my solution.
Right.
They were, it's so hard not to swear right now, but I hate those shirts that say shoot your local heroin dealer. I'm like, you are so uneducated and so misinformed about what addiction really stems from. And although, I'm certainly not supporting my local heroin dealer, the local heroin dealer doesn't faze me any today.
No, because I made the choice, right? Because I couldn't find a better way to do it, so that was my easy, softer way for the way I felt, right? But I didn't know any better for a long time, right? I was pointed to the halls of the fellowships throughout my whole life, losing my license, locked up, incarcerated. They always said, go find help, be part of something, right? They push you towards those places for a reason. Yeah. And I was defiant and egotistical enough to say, you know what, I don't need none of that. Yep. I don't need your help. I got this. Yeah. I got this. Till I just kept destroying all these relationships and destroying everything, and I I ended up back on my dad's couch more times than I want to admit. And finally the last step was like, the people in my life decided to stop enabling me, stop giving me another chance, and said, you're gonna either get locked up or go get help.
That's really crazy, because that's awesome. Because we had a show with another young lady right before this one, and she had the same, and she couldn't stop until everyone in her life cut her off, and that was my experience too. So I feel like the viewers really need to hear that tonight.
Yeah, it's the hardest line to tell, because my family wants to help me. They want me to do well. They're just thinking, one more time, he'll be okay. Let's send him to detox for 7 days. And they probably think that that's enough for me.
I'm just laughing because so many people think like they're good after detox.
Yeah, detox or even a 30-day, right? For me, I've been walking into the woods for 20 years, right? 2 decades I was out there creating this brain and creating the chemistry in my head and the way that I think and react to life. And it's not going to take me 30 days to walk out of those woods. I'm sorry, right? But if I go in the right direction and I surround myself with a lot of good people and some good literature and have like some connection, some genuine human connection, that's what I've been searching for my whole life, right? That's what spirituality is for me. That's what my higher power is. People, you can look at it any which way you want, but like my connection with human beings today, my connection, like the way that I feel love in my heart today is what my spirituality is. And I didn't have no love in my heart, a few years ago, and I found it. And it's like we all have many paths that we can take, and mine just was through, I had to go to treatment, and I had to go through certain levels of care, and I had to step down to living in a sober house, and I needed people around me 24/7 to be like, Joe, come on, let's go, we're going to a meeting, or hey, have you written a 4-step yet? What are you waiting for? right? Because left to my own devices, I don't do that stuff.
That brings up such an important topic that I think we should probably discuss, because I don't know if we ever really discussed on the show. It's like a double-edged sword, because the truth is that the treatment industry is a booming industry.
It is.
It is, and that's the truth. Like, there are people that are making a killing and a living, but my truth is that I wouldn't be sitting here without extended long-term treatment, and I needed that. So although it is a booming industry, it provided me what I needed to get to where I'm at.
100%. It's a booming industry because the epidemic is so booming right now, right? Like, our country goes through stages of these, like, you know, it was the crack cocaine epidemic, you know, back in the 80s and stuff. And now with the heroin, and now with the way that the fentanyl and the car fentanyl, and it's like, it's Russian roulette with like a fully loaded gun. You might have one chamber, you might have one chance, you know, like, but it's so deadly that, like, you know, people are terrified of this, so they want to send their kids to treatment, and it's great, but it's also a lot of these kids haven't even lived yet. They've tried it a couple times, and they don't want to stop yet, right? So it's like, you know, where is how do we find the pain threshold?
Right.
I was lucky enough that I did not die after the 5th or 6th or 7th time I overdosed. Like, I used to question why I was still here, right? Why I was still here, and why there's poor innocent people dying, right? Yeah. And I found that reason, right? I found that I get to give away what I have, what I've gotten so freely from a fellowship, and, you know, from going through treatment. I found it, and I want to give that away. So maybe if one person can hear what I say and maybe change their mind, because I was so hard-headed that I didn't listen to anybody until I saw the proof in front of me.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about long-term treatment. So I'm a huge advocate for long-term treatment, just based off of, like, if you just want to use science as what we're going with, like the damage that's done to the brain and how the brain needs time to repair, right? So, you know, people that have, like, really extensive substance use disorders, they have impacted the prefrontal cortex, where their primary decision making is made. So I'm sorry, but after 7 days, like, the brain is resilient, but it's not that resilient, right? 30 days, I'm here to tell you that I didn't even start coming out of the fog until probably like 60 days, you know?
Exactly. I didn't feel normal to go like a full day of work till like 5 or 6 months, right? I started to work again after I went to treatment, and I was living in a sober house, and you know, they let me on a tight leash to work a few days a week, and like, I just didn't have the energy, the mental capacity. Like, this has to happen slow for me and organically. Like, it can't be put into me. You know, I have to get it slow and steady.
That's what's great for people like us.
Yeah.
Because so the really cool thing with some of these treatment modalities is they integrate you back into life too, and slowly, right? Like at your rate, when you're ready, going through the process. Did I like it? No. Did I complain and, you know, that they're controlling and this and that? But
they won't let me have fun. They won't let me go out. Like, you know, and like, that's because I want what I want when I want it. I'm like a little baby, right? Because alcohol and drugs had stunted my growth so much that I didn't think like a mature adult. Like, my decisions were, I want it now, right? Like, this is the king baby, and there's all these, like, you know, psychological evidence that, like, once we start putting, you know, it shaped the way that our decision-making skills, so we didn't know how to, you know, rationalize like normal human beings, right? And so I need to learn that, and it's not going to take me, you know, a couple months. It's got to be over a length of time. But also, the most important part for me is I got to be doing some internal work. Yeah. I got to be digging up some stuff. I got to be sharing some stuff with somebody I trust, right? I got to start my problem is I don't trust anybody, right?
Not even myself.
Not even myself. So I get into the treatment world, or I get into one of these fellowships, and I'm like, what do these people want from me? And they're coming up to me, and they're putting their hand out to me, and I've never had people, you know, try to help me out for just because it was the right thing to do. People were helping me because they were going to get something, or I did the same to them. So to see that, and to start seeing it over, you know, a course of a couple months, to be like, oh, maybe they're not out to get me, they're actually here to help me. That was when my eyes started to open a little bit, that like, there is really a lot of good in this world. I've just been living in a really dark place, and I don't, you know, I started to see the light, and I started to come out of it. And by, you know, working with a sponsor and working with people that I trusted, and just kind of I was just holding on to some people that were really doing the right thing.
Isn't it cool?
I loved it. I have, you know, probably like 5 or 6 guys that like just coddled me. Thank God for them.
Yeah.
That they brought me through this. They showed me, like, even simple things like going to the gym, and I couldn't even do 2 pull-ups.
Well, self-love. Going
Yeah.
to the gym is self-love,
Yeah.
and we don't know how to love ourselves.
No.
Yeah, mentors are huge for me. Huge. I still have like a group of women that I check in with daily. We have a accountability group, and we hold one another accountable. Not only because I found my way through 12-step recovery. So not only do we hold each other accountable with like that inventory process, but goals. Like, what are you moving towards? What are you working towards? Like, yeah, and so there's always recovery related goals, but then there's also personal like development goals. Like, what are you moving towards? You need to be growing. You
Yeah.
always need to be growing. Gratitude list, because how quickly do we lose gratitude?
Really quick. I can lose gratitude really quick. When I start to get selfish again,
Yeah.
and when I start thinking, poor me, I pull out a gratitude list. I start saying, what am I grateful for? And I can list off thousands of things today. You know, when I first got into treatment, it was a couple things. I got a boot, I got food, a bed, and like, you know, I'm living in a house at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was it. But now I love things like, I love the rain today, you know, because it replenishes the earth. I love, like, you know, sometimes I like sitting in traffic, honestly, because it gives me time in my busy life to just relax. I can't go anywhere, right? Like, I find things to be grateful for today.
Yeah.
Because I have to be. Because, you know, I was told a grateful heart will never drink or drug.
Yeah.
So when I'm not grateful and I'm saying that, you know, the world owes me something, that's easier to pick up.
Yeah. On my truth is driving here. I was like, oh, I really need to reach out to my accountability group and text them all the things that I hate right now so they can hold me accountable. And I got here and I prayed with a young lady because I was like, I'm just really struggling. And I was like, I know that the universe needs me to be here right now, and I trust that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm telling you, it's done a 180. Like, those things that I hated on the ride here don't even matter anymore.
Yeah, and it's those tools that we pick up along the way that save our lives, literally. And it's about keeping somebody and teaching them, right, without letting them run away. Because a lot of people come to treatment and they're like, they're not letting me do this. I don't want to, you know, I want to do this, and I need a bunch of people. I need to be held accountable, is what it is. I need layers of accountability. Right, I need a sponsor. Like, I need a home group, a service. I need things that just people expect me to show up, and when I don't, they're like, "Where are you?" Right? My friends, they call me out. Like, I always say this. Like my true friends, they stab me in the chest. Right? They don't talk about me behind my back. They say it right to my face. Right? And before, nobody would ever do that to me because they were terrified of what I would say. They were terrified of what I would do. But now they know today that I'm genuine and I'm going to listen, and I'm not going to like it. Because I don't like it a lot being called out, because I still have an ego, right? And I don't like being wrong, but I need that. So because I look at it from these eyes and my perspective, and it's skewed a lot of the times. So people that aren't connected to my stuff can say, Joe, why don't you take a look at this? Why don't you see it from this angle?
Yeah.
And that's something I never had. I had self and what I do in the day, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
You know?
It's great. Being humbled is great.
Yeah.
I don't handle it very gracefully
But
sometimes.
the thing is, I can be just as insane today as I ever was.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can let it escalate and I can let it go down that path. And like, that's why recovery and that's why this being part of something it's a lifelong process.
It really is. And it's such a cool, forgiving, loving process, because you had said like you get insane real quick. Like, I have really messed up in sobriety. I have.
Me too.
Yeah. I've done like really terrible things. I've hurt people. I've shown up in ways that I'm not proud of. But the really cool thing is that like I have used those as growth opportunities. I've got to know myself on a deeper level because I got to see who I didn't want to be. So I could get a little bit closer to who I want to be, a little bit closer to the true me. And I've learned forgiveness for myself.
Forgiveness is huge. If going through recovery and you know, going to treatment or wherever you choose to get sober, if it's just a peachy walk in the, you know, in the sun and nothing happens to you, you're not going to be ready. You're not going to be ready for when stuff does hit the fan. I know for me, something really hit the fan when I was about 13 months sober, and because I had a fellowship, because I had a bunch of people that actually cared about me, because I had my family coming back in my life, because I was sponsoring guys, I was working the steps, I was doing a whole bunch of things that the you know, the untreated Joey doesn't do. I was doing these things to form a new character. I made it through that without picking up a drink or a drug. And that was the death of my sister. My sister died of a fentanyl overdose when I was sober. So I didn't have any drugs to pour on top of it. I didn't have any alcohol to pour on top of it. What I had was the love and the affection and the support of everybody around me.
It was like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago?
Yep, 3 years ago.
And she had babies.
She had 2 twins.
2 twins, yeah, I remember.
And she you know, she battled this just like me. We battled it back and forth, back and forth. She had a period of sobriety, and she's the one that pushed me. She was that last push to get me into treatment.
Stop.
Yeah, she said, Joe, do it, and she set it up for me. She got me in.
I'm gonna cry.
It is. I tell the story
It's
a
so
lot
God.
because I want it to be known that, like, I didn't have to drink over it. Like, that's my sister, my best friend, but she, you know, this all happened for a reason. Like, she was having a really tough time with the twins, and she thought just one more was going to ease that, you know, that ease and comfort that comes from that first drink or drug, right? Sometimes we get insane, we want that, and she was in recovery, and she thought just one more time because the kids were screaming and yelling, and, you know, one baby for an addict, right? Like, that has like 9 months. Like, like, she had 2.
My boyfriend has twins and they're 4. I don't even. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I still see these twins, you know, today, and they're growing up, and, like, you know, I could have been really mad, and I could have been really, you know, her boyfriend, her fiance at the time was, you know, I wanted to take my anger out on him. I really did, because I didn't know where else to put it, right? I knew I didn't want to use, but my old character defect of anger wanted to come out. And the moment I know that I had changed, and a lot of people in my life knew I changed, is when I went to the hospital and I saw my sister, and he was in the other room, and he came in, and I heard his voice, and it was like make or break it time, right? And he came in, and it's like either punch him or hug him, and, like, I asked God for help in that moment, and I gave him the longest hug I've ever given anybody in my life, and I said, I'm here for you. I'm going to be there in those twins' life. They're going to know Jody, and we're going to carry her legacy on. You know, she'll never die if we keep her, you know, alive in our memories.
It's amazing.
And that is, you know, I tell the story a lot because I want people to know that this is just, you know, things are going to happen. Things are going to happen in recovery. I never have an excuse to pick up. If I didn't have an excuse then, I don't have an excuse ever to pick up.
Yeah.
You know, because all that's going to do is destroy my life and destroy, you know, my daughter's life and my girl's life and everybody else that has built a life around me, you know, and asked me to be part of their life. I get to be part of people's lives today. They invite me to their house for dinner. I invite my friends over to my house for dinner. It's the weirdest thing ever. It's the coolest thing.
Yeah. The trials and tribulations, there are unfortunate events that I've been through. Certainly not the death of my sister. That's very traumatizing. But there are unfortunate events that I've been through, and when everything clears, when they say when the mud settles, you can usually see that there's God in it.
Yes.
You know, and whether things turned out the way I want or the way things that I think that they should be, there's always some purpose and guiding force that's much bigger than me, and something needed to happen. You know.
Yeah. I don't know God's plan. I don't know, you know, where I'm, you know, gonna end up in 30 years, 40 years. I don't know. Like, I know today that I can be happy and whole by being part of something that's greater than me. And it's really sometimes that simple. I don't have to get all complicated into it. I have a bunch of friends. I have, you know, I believe in prayer. I believe in just, you know, grounding techniques and stuff like that to get me out of the fog when I'm in it. Because life's a roller coaster, right? Yeah. And my idea is to kind of just stay right in the middle, right, and not be too far up or too far down. I just want to be on an even keel. Like, for me, like, you know, sanity is defined as, like, soundness of mind, right? When my mind is sound, when I'm making rational decisions, like, I never have to pick up a drink or a drug. Like, how do I find sanity? It's like, there's a bunch of work I can do. There's a bunch of, you know, people I can talk to. There's spirituality. There's all sorts of, like, groups out there that can help you with that. And find your purpose.
Yes, please.
I need a purpose, and I found it. I found it in a fellowship. I found it working at a treatment center. And what I do is I encourage clients to use the 12 steps. I hold them accountable to work a 12-step program, you know, to get that sponsor, because nobody wants to do it. Nobody.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it's not fun. It's like, I want to do the easy thing. But if I didn't have people that did that for me and pushed me, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Yeah. I promise you.
If you're the real deal, the frothy stuff
emotional
doesn't
appeal.
Work. Yeah. So we have, first of all, the whole show has pretty much gone by, but we have a couple things that were sent in. So Heart and Soul Yoga. This is Margot's mom. Oh, she says, love you all.
Love you.
And then Sarah sent, everyone has a purpose in life. It's weird because you were just talking about purpose and I said that. Sometimes that purpose is simply to be an example and inspiration to others. God bless you both.
Yeah, and if that's what my sister can be, like, if I can, you know, tell her story and change the minds of just one addict or one alcoholic or anybody. I don't. It doesn't matter. Like who am I to say where the message goes and who takes it? You know, I got to do my part to try to help as many people as I can, and I get to do that today.
I was gonna say we have one job to show up, because it's not even up to me of whether I get to help them or not. It's my job to show up, because like God, whatever God is, decides like who gets help. Because sometimes my ego is like, well, what the hell? Like, why aren't they getting this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, wait a second. It's not your job to decide whether they get this or not. It's your job to show up and love them unconditionally.
Exactly.
That's your job.
I mean, I battle that all the time. Like, why aren't they listening to me? Why aren't they, like, what? Don't they hear the pain that I've gone through? They don't, I can save them all this pain, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't like that for me. If I look back, like if I'm empathetic enough to realize that I was, you know, when I was 22, 23, we have a lot of young kids that aren't really ready to give it up. But we hope to just show them that this is where we can recover.
Instill something.
Yeah.
So we have like a minute left.
Okay.
Which is crazy.
What do you
this
got?
Show flew by. I want you to, anyone that's watching that's struggling, what do you have to say to them? Like, if you could just offer them any advice.
If you think you can never recover, if you think your life is going to be hopeless, you know, and you're never going to amount to anything, I've been there. I've been to the point where I've tried to, like, you know, suicide by injection or driving so, you know, messed up that I didn't care, you know, taking so many people's lives in vain, right? I've been hopeless. I've been defeated, and that's when it turned the road for me, and I started to say, you know what? I got to try something else. So if you haven't tried something else, if you've tried to be left to your own devices and do what's always worked, you know, what hasn't always worked for you, and you know, try something new. Yeah. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen if you give a few months of your life? Like, go to treatment, go to rehab, go to detox, and go to further treatment maybe and test it out. Because I really don't know. Like, I try to tell myself on a daily basis, I don't know I don't know much. I know a little bit about a little bit.
We like to think we know, though.
Yeah, I always think I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know much. Like, it's proven to me every day.
Yeah.
You know, so like you never know what's the worst going to happen if you give a few months of your life, and maybe you become part of something that's greater than you. Maybe you get to help people. Maybe you get to you know, you go to treatment, and you could be sober for a few months, but you could also meet a bunch of cool friends, be shown something that you could be part of. Like, what's the worst going to happen? Try it.
So if you're watching, you can check us out on our Facebook page. I'm a heroin addict. Check out the Facebook page. Joey will link to it. If you have any questions for Joey, reach out to him. If you're looking for help, reach out to Joey. You can reach out to anyone on the Exit team. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you.